Hello everybody, this is Money Mom. Welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited about today's video because I'm doing a collab with one of my favorite YouTubers, Emmy and Paul over at Frugal Money Saver. I know many of you know them already. They're all about frugal living, budget meals, and they tell you all the things that they do around their house. They do a lot of videos called A Day in a Life, and I love their videos. After you're done watching this, please go over and watch their video. Today we're going to talk about what do you do for struggle meals, or if you don't have a lot of money for food and you're really on a restricted budget, or what I call a struggle meal. And so I'm just going to go over some things that I would personally do. So for myself, I'm titling this video, What Do I Do If I Don't Have a Lot of Money or a Lot of Time? Because you guys know I work a lot. So I'm going to go over some of the ideas that are very frugal that work in my household, which also helps us use all the things we have in our home. A lot of times I used to think that I had to buy a lot of meat, and I would make a lot of meals with big chicken breasts. Well, guess what? If everybody has a chicken breast and a half, you can end up spending a lot of money on food. So here's some ideas of things that we do when we're wanting to cut back a little. I always keep protein shake on hand because you can have a protein shake for dinner. You can fill it with, I have spinach in the refrigerator. I can put that in there if I want to add veggies or fruit. You can, if you want, you can put instant coffee in here to give it a mocha flavor. But for a nice quick meal, a protein shake is good, and I always have this on hand. Now, one of the things I grew up eating that I love, and I told you guys that we've had a lot of leftover bread lately, is obviously any kind of sandwich. One of the least expensive sandwiches, peanut butter and jelly. I did get this peanut butter for free, and so that is something that we love to have. My husband sometimes will make a grilled cheese or fried egg sandwich, and this way we use the bread up that we have at home. Another thing that my daughter did just recently is she had a veggie burger. Well, we didn't have buns, so guess what? She used sandwich bread. It was totally fine. Something else is I don't buy a lot of produce because I don't want it to go bad. And so one thing I may do is if we're having dinner, I may take one orange and split it up between 3 people. That way everybody gets some and somebody doesn't waste part of the orange because they only wanted part of it. Because many times when people eat produce like an apple, they may only eat part of it and not want the rest. This way it all gets eaten. Something else, a lot of folks think that you need to have this 3 or 4 course meal. Little simple things can be a meal. For example, let's say you don't have a lot of time, and there's been many times in my world where I don't. You can have crackers, and you can have maybe a little cheese and maybe some cold cuts with that. And then maybe you could have part of an orange, something of that nature. Now that might not sound like really a meal, it might sound more like a snack, but if you put some other things together, that's the biggest way I save money. I don't try to match my foods together. I just throw a bunch of things together that we might have leftovers of, and you might have a variety of different foods on your plate, but this way it reduces food waste, and that's my biggest goal right now, to have less food waste. I'm getting better, but I can always use improvements. Another big thing, breakfast for dinner. We always have eggs on hand, and as a matter of fact, you guys know I love my slow cooker. I'll make a breakfast casserole in that slow cooker, and that, if I split it up correctly, that can make like 8 meals right there, and that would be something we could have, and I keep them in containers so they're ready to heat. Cereal is always an inexpensive choice. Now, we don't do this very often, but if you don't have a lot of time, I remember we used to have cereal nights growing up. Also, I'm using my waffle maker a lot, and you can make your own mix, which I know is more frugal, but remember, this is time and money, and for my life anyway. But this is very inexpensive, and this makes several waffles, and everybody can have one waffle. You can put fresh fruit on top if you want, and it can make a great meal. Another thing is I've been using less meats. Instead of using a whole pound of meat, maybe use a half and fill it in with beans or any leftover vegetables. I always keep a lot of cans of food at my house. And if you want to make a great big, pot of soup, you can just throw everything in the kitchen sink in there, and that can basically feed you for a whole week. I can eat the same thing every day and I never get tired of it. Some folks may not want to do that. If you don't, you could freeze part of it for later. You guys know I grew up in Minnesota. I call it the hot dish capital of the world. I grew up with Hungarian goulash and all that. And I tell you, we would have the little pasta, little elbow macaroni. I don't have any of it right now. And we'd have stewed tomatoes in there, a little bit of meat, paprika and all that. It was delicious. And you could, you know, put a lot of sauce in there, things like that. You could throw a bunch of veggies in there. That can make a good hearty meal. And you don't have to put tons and tons of meat in there, and it could be very frugal. If you don't want to buy ground beef, you could buy ground turkey and just use half of that, or use 1/4 of a pound of that and fill it with beans and vegetables to make a really good, inexpensive, hearty meal that you can freeze for later if you want, and it's delicious. Something else that I've been doing that is good is if you want, having a couple of these cans of chicken if they go on sale. That can be something that's more frugal than maybe buying fresh chicken. And if you want, you can have a little protein in a meal, and you could just maybe even use half a can. Always use a little less. I've been keeping all sorts of beans. Now I know dried beans are going to be much more frugal than canned beans, but if you're making a chili and you throw all this stuff together, it can really stretch and make a massive big amount. Last but not least, the potato is wonderful. You can make all different kinds of potatoes. I remember back in Minnesota there was a restaurant, I don't know if it's still open, it was kind of like a potato bar, and you could get a pizza potato, a taco potato. You could have potato night and cut this open and fill it with all sorts of delicious foods. So there's a lot of fabulous ideas out there. I admit, I can work on my food budget. My biggest issue is I do buy pre-made and some processed food rather than always making homemade stuff. But if I needed to and I had to cut my food budget in half, I would be able to do it. But remember, whenever you cut down on your food budget, it does take more time. So that's part of the reason why I gave you a few of these ideas, because they don't take a lot of time. So here's a few of my ideas. Please, when you're done watching this video, go say hi to Emmy and Paul for me over at Frugal Money Saver. I know you're going to absolutely love that channel. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I appreciate you, I love you, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.